They were the daughters of a lady Mom worked with. I never met them, but remembered for a long time where their house was after Mom pointed it out to me. I think one of the girls died. This might have been my first opportunity to think about immortality, but I don't remember thinking about it. Not until one day when I was in the yard and Mom yelled, "Come on, Deb, get in the car. We have to go see the landlord." I only heard one word, Lord. We're going to see God, I thought. I sat real quiet in the back seat, hunched way down. Don't recall ever mentioning my thoughts to anyone. It was so awesome. With memories of the Bell Girls accident and our visit to the landlord still fresh on my mind, Mom, driving our 1928 four-door Chevrolet, was involved in an accident with me in the back seat. Our car and another one, driven by some idiot, sideswiped each other at an intersection. Lots of broken glass and one small piece in one of my eyes. Panic time. Cars are too dangerous. First, half the roof of our old Dodge blows off in a dust storm. Then the Bell Girls accident, and now this. And I'm in the back seat howling again. It must not have been terribly serious, however, because not much was ever said about it. Next time Mom visits the landlord or goes to the store or visits a friend and calls me to go with her, I'll hide someplace. Saturdays were really special days. Dad always gave us each a dime during baseball season so we could go see the matinee at the Rex Theater 3 or 4 blocks away. My older brother Chuck always went with us. One day the grown-up lady at the ticket booth wouldn't let Chuck in. It seems he was over age and would need another nickel. He looked sad as we went in and he stayed out. I was in a crying frame of mind. A few minutes later, having gone home to get another nickel, he slipped in beside me. Saturday matinee was fun again. Those were great movies. We watched the serials that ran from week to week and always stopped dead in the most exciting part with "to be continued." There was my favorite called Black Hawk. Black Hawk was a good guy who flew a black biplane. Black and white were the only colors available. He chased bad guys, or maybe he was the bad guy. Anyway, he was always about to get shot, or his engine sputtered while in a tailspin, or his wings were tearing, or "to be continued." There was Flash Gordon and the black-bearded, sinister, evil one that always wore a cape. They chased each other through underground caverns and strange-sounding rocket ships. Flash spent a lot of time carrying ladies who had fainted, and he was always outnumbered 10-1. The Betty Boop and Mickey Mouse cartoons topped off the afternoon's entertainment to the loud cheers of the Rex Theater's patrons. Not far from our house was Sloan's Lake, named after some guy by the name of Sloan. In the winter, it froze over. Driving by it one winter day, my dad noticed some action that caught his interest, and we stopped to watch. Mom said, "What on earth are they doing?" Cars were going out on the lake. One at a time, they would go down a shallow slope and start spinning and sliding around on the ice. Some of them went pretty fast. It looked like a lot of fun, but we didn't get to do it. Dad thought it was crazy, and Mom said it was dangerous. They could fall through the ice. Kindergarten was a one-day deal. I guess I stayed the whole year, but really only remember that one day. Probably the first day. And if there was no improvement after that, the rest is not worthy of mention. Some big, loud, ugly kid destroyed the road I had built in the sandbox with one sweep of his hand. A real jerk. Then we moved all the way across the city to 63 Colorado Boulevard, within easy walking and wagon pulling distance of Cherry Creek. Open prairie, houses under construction, and the city dump. Lots of vacant lots were around, some even with trees. My world was growing and getting more exciting. That is, on weekends and vacations from school. The schools we attended was probably a good one. It was a nice brick building, but the time spent there terribly interrupted some great natural learning and loafing experiences. My most vivid memories of my early days in school swirl around spending much time in classrooms looking out windows, waiting eagerly for bells to ring and running like hell when they did. In every school there was at least one tough kid, a bully, gang leader, whatever, always somebody to be feared by the more timorous section of the school populace. My brother and I were the most of the more timorous. So by the time the tough kid wanted to lay For my brother, we had our escape route well planned through the vacant lots with trees. After gaining safe passage and being within easy distance to our fortress, home, we leapt into the clear, waving and laughing at our pursuer and his followers still lying in wait on a corner back near the school. There must surely have been some dire consequences for such mockery, but if there were, I really don't recall. Perhaps the tough kid and his friends decided we weren't worth the effort and went after a more challenging game. Events did turn about on one occasion. Every dog has his day. I had mine. Ronald Kochow hit me out on the playground. He had a runny nose, he was ugly, and he could run. I couldn't catch him. He was instant hate on the hoof. Ronald lived very close to the school and could quite easily elude me and my wrath each day that I laid for him. An appetite for revenge could bring about awesome cunning in a skinny little kid. I worked out a truce with Ronald on the playground during recess. We're friends now. I'll walk home with you. He went for it. Once out of school's view and checking all around to assure a void of witnesses, I struck. I punched him on the left arm just below the shoulder. Ronald screamed like he'd been hit by a dog. Excuse me. And ran for home bellowing that I had hit his vaccination. I was sure he was hurt bad, and I ran for home and hid. Once the effects of the attack wore off, we frequently played together. Ronald didn't seem ugly anymore. At the age of 6, I became fascinated watching my mother and 2 brothers doing dishes. I meekly asked if I could help. With lightning speed, the trap closed. Never again was it ever necessary to ask. It was a household chore from which I, not even yet, had been able to retire. Mom always worked, so my brother Bob and I had the responsibility of doing the dishes. Each morning she would tell us how much easier it would be just to pitch right in and do them as soon as she left for work. It was always made sense to us at the moment, but we never actually did it. It was always a last-minute rush, hurry just before she was to get home from work. On one such occasion, we waited too late. "There isn't even time to start," Bob yelled. "Put 'em in the oven, quick." "Yeah, she won't find 'em in there." So the coal-cooked stove oven served as a last-ditch hiding place for a large stack of dirty dishes, utensils, and pans. Mom didn't find them. Not right away. What she did do, though, was build a fire in the stove for cooking and bake the dishes to their total destruction. This was one of my first strong senses of shame and self-worthlessness. My disdain for responsibility was not totally dissipated by the experience, but the seeds, perhaps, were planted for a slow growth from childish neglect and laziness toward the realization that satisfaction may be found in performing necessary tasks. Sure. We had other responsibilities. The number 40 has always reminded me of the number of rabbits we had hutched in the garage. Those hutches needed cleaning every Saturday. And while Chuck, Bob, and I did that, Dad would select a few choice ones for their food value and their hides. We ate a lot of rabbit, and it was very good. But those hides, how anyone could wear those things was more than I could understand. After being dried for a couple of days, they were like fur-covered boards. I heard later, though, that when they were made into coats, they were called mink. I didn't know anything about mink, but was told that it's real expensive. Reaching into the barley barrel one day, I was delightfully startled to discover that a rat the size of a German shepherd scurrying around in the oats. What to do? Aha! I quickly gathered up the cat and dropped him into the barrel. A bit messy, but very effective. The German shepherd rat was no more. We had 3 other animals, 2 goats, and a dog. The goats were required to provide a little more of that much-needed responsibility for my brother Bob and I. The dog was a gift to my brother from a man in a passing car. What would the world be without grown-ups who give dogs to little kids? What kind of dog? What breed? We assumed he was purebred. He was all dog. The following 13 years were sprinkled with discussions and arguments regarding his lineage. A lot of imagination went into the selection of a name. Spot was the unanimous choice, though totally lacking in that supporting characteristic. But names do not need logical support. I learned at the time and later had to be reminded that little goats are called kids. I liked that. I came to love those little goats, and being a kid myself proved a common ground, a rapport between us. Young goats needed milk, warm milk, To this day, when milk is being heated in my presence, for whatever reason, the smell of it reminds me of those goats. Mom felt sure that if we piled them with lots of warm milk and fed them well, we would eventually be able to milk the one we called Nanny. We did it. We fed them gallons of warm milk, lots of alfalfa and other stuff that goats eat. We found after several tries, too, that they do not eat tin cans. They will, however, eat small quantities of paper. If we ever milked the Nanny, I don't remember. They did grow fairly large, but not very old. One of our responsibilities was to be sure that they were put inside the garage at night. One night we forgot. It rained, and a few days later they both died. The punishment for this negligence was built in. Mom and Dad were both very sympathetic and shared in our sorrow for the loss. Not generally listed among our chores was weed cutting with the small hand sickle. If we were going to cut weeds, we were instructed to use a hoe. A hoe is more effective because it gets part of the root, but it's heavier and harder work than swinging a small sickle. A sickle, my dad assured us, was dangerous in the hands of a novice. Bob tried it anyway and was having a great success sending weeds a-flying. It looked like a lot of fun, too. "Let me try it," I asked Bob. Bob said, "Okay, but be careful." In no time at all, I had it down pat, whacking those weeds with abandon until one wild swing, the thing glanced off a rock and sunk into the inside of my left foot, right through the shoe. Time again for tight bandages and iodine and the application of Dad's medical experience when he gets home later. He might also have had something to say about us using a tool we were explicitly told to leave in the garage. Chapter 2. To be continued.